Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a fine day. Today we're going to be making sourdough bread, or other ways.
Yeah, other ways what? To call it leavened bread.
Leavened bread, yes.
Okay. What's your name?
My name is Zachary.
And my name is Antoine. Thank you again for joining us. So what did we learn yesterday, Zach?
Well, we learned yesterday to make sure that the phone is not confused.
Yes, that's right. Turns out with an iPhone, if you start when it's already horizontal and you turn it on, well, the phone thinks that it's already vertical when it's already horizontal, and therefore the video is sideways. So yeah, that's true. So today I think I did it right. We'll cross our fingers. But I wanted to know what we learned to cook in the oven.
Oh yeah, yesterday we learned how to cook scones.
Okay, were they good?
Yes.
Did you have them for breakfast?
Yes.
Okay, is there any left at home?
Yes.
Okay, good. Never sure. Okay, so we said we'll make
Leavened bread.
leavened bread or sourdough. So again, we'll do just like we did for the baguette, we'll do it backward. We'll show you how to score the bread, how to put it in the oven, and then we'll show you how to make the batch while the bread is cooking, and we'll show you how to boil it and get it ready, so that way, hopefully by the time of the video, we'll be able to take the bread out and it will look like what it should look like when you take it out of the oven. So here we have bread that we made yesterday, and I took it out of the out of the fridge this morning. I shaped it and I put it to proof in this basket. And so we're going to stick a little bit. We're going to, how do we do it, Zach? How do we put it in the oven?
So first you have to cut the bread with
How is that called?
with either a knife or a something sharp that
Okay.
will cut it.
All right, so not quite yet, right? We need
Yeah.
to put it on
On a peel.
the peel. All right. If not, you're going to have a problem. So we take a peel. So here we have a wooden peel. Those are nice. They were made just for that. But of course, sometimes you don't have everything, so you can use a cutting board. You can use anything that you don't mind getting a little dirty to put a little bit of flour. So it's what I'm going to do. I'm going to flour the peel a little bit, and I flour the bread as well. And then I'm going to take it down gently, take it out of the basket, and Zach is going to score it. So when you score it, make sure your blade is about at a 30-degree angle, more like that, and you score always towards you. Go ahead, again, okay, and a little bit more.
One more time.
Okay, so make sure when you cut with this part of the blade or the knife, so you can really go all the way in. Okay, this was perfect, and you see the bread is starting to collapse on us, which is perfectly fine. It means it has a lot of air bubbles. So we're going to open the oven. We're going to remove the insulated door. Zach is going to put it in, and then with my peel, good, okay. I'm going to grab, I have the pan, just like I did on, when was it? I think Wednesday, sorry. I have the pan with the brakes. I put a little bit of water in it. This time I use hot water. And put it back in. So, as I was saying, I put hot water so it gets hotter, the steam comes out faster. I close my insulated door, I close my cast iron door that's going to retain the heat and the steam so my bread will rise nicely. Of course, if you do that at home, you can just use a baking stone inside your oven. And again, if you can use a pan, just a brownies tray, a little bit of water, and it will start making some steam in the oven. So while it's baking, Zach, can you set a timer?
I will.
Okay. All right, so we'll get the mixing bowl. And so, just like for the baguette, you need a mixing bowl. So today Zach wanted to mix by hand. He's really brave, so I'm not going to use a machine.
So
How
how many minutes?
15.
Okay.
Okay.
Timer is set.
Okay. So what do you have to mix here? What do you need?
So first you will have your starter. Then you will have water,
Okay.
room temperature water and preferred filter. Then
Okay.
we will use this whole wheat flour. So normally you do 100% of flour. So we'll do 100 grams of whole wheat flour and 900 grams of white wheat flour. And then you have 20 grams of salt. So first you will mix in the starter and the water.
Alright, so what do you need to measure your starter?
So you will use a scale.
Alright, so bring the scale here. Alright, now we switch sides. So you turn on your scale, and then what?
And then you put your bowl that you're using to mix.
Okay,
And then you will start,
so you put your scale at 0.
yes.
Make sure you don't weigh the weight of the bowl.
And you will start putting the starter
Okay.
amount that you
And
need.
so, and how many grams of starter did you say?
100 grams of starter.
Okay, so again, for all the recipes, if you go to breadstoneovens.com and you search on the Wood Fired Oven blog, you can find all the recipes, the baguette, the scone, how to make your starter, and of course how to make the sourdough bread. It's also called country loaf. It's also called a boule. It has plenty of names, but the idea is the same. You use some whole wheat flour with some bread flour with your starter, so no yeast. You only use natural yeast, which is what the starter is. And so the starter we're using is something that we made, this one I have had for years, but actually the one that we made is doing extremely well, and it's nice and bubbly, so I will show you in a minute.
So then after we put our starter, we will set it back to 0 and we will put 650 grams of water.
So anytime you pour water in a digital scale, it takes a few seconds for the scale to catch up to how much weight you are putting. So don't go too fast, especially as you get closer to the number that you are aiming for. Then just start slowing down and put a little bit at a time. It's important that you are fairly accurate. So we are saying 650 grams. Let's say you put 660, that's not a big deal. But let's say you put 700, that's too much. You will have to take some out. Alright, you almost there, Doug?
There we go,
Alright.
650 grams. Then you will take your whisk and you will start to mix. Take it off of the scale because it will break the sensors of the scale if you do it because of reasons.
Alright, yeah, so you don't want to mix with your whisk on the scale because you put pressure and you could damage your scale all the time. So just as I said, mix it out. So the idea is just again to just liquefy the starter, make sure it's fully diluted into the water, and it doesn't take much mixing.
So then after I put the water and the starter, I will add the flour, which is 100 grams of whole wheat flour.
Alright, so hold on, are you done with your whisk?
Yes.
Okay.
So try and clean off the whisk and take it out.
Okay.
And then set it back to 0 and you will add 100 grams of whole wheat flour.
Alright, very good. And so this whole wheat flour is the same whole wheat flour that we have been using for starter to feed it. And so it's important again to use the same type of flour to make sure that your starter stays nice and strong. If all of a sudden you switch flour on the starter, it may not be as active as you were hoping that it will, and that's perfectly normal. It's just like if you are using, if you are just like us, if you use if you are used to eating a very specific diet, and then all of a sudden you just change your diet, you're not going to feel exactly the same.
And
So,
then we will add
Yeah,
our
sure.
900 grams of flour.
I'm going to help you.
Set it back to 0.
Okay, got it. Zach has a lot of experience because he's always volunteering to help me with the cooking class that we usually hold on Saturdays. And so he has been doing it pretty much since he's 5 and now he's 11. So he knows quite a bit. And I have him often help me teach the class. And that's why he's so comfortable with knowing the recipe, what to do, what to avoid, making sure you don't do certain things that are going to make the recipe not as good as it could be.
So I just put 900 grams of white flour. Then you will take it off, and then you will start to not use the whisk. After you put your salt, which we pre-measured it, but it's normally 20 grams. After you put your salt and the flour, you won't mix by whisk, but you will use your hands or an electric mixer if you have one. So I will start mixing by hands.
Alright. And so yeah, usually I tell people when you mix by hand, it gets a little messy, and that's perfectly normal. So make sure you remove any rings, any bracelet, jewelry or watches that you don't want to get dirty. So it takes about, I would say, 2 to 3 minutes to mix by hand. Same thing as if you were with a mixer. And really the idea is just to mix so all the flour is mixed with the water. So then you know you are done mixing with the first mix when you don't have any dry flour left. And as you can see, it sticks to your finger. Show your hands. Here we go. But that's perfectly normal. As you keep mixing, it's going to
start mixing in with the dough, and
exactly.
You want no flour left.
All right. And so while Zach is doing that, again, here we have our starter, and it's doing really well. It smells nice. So it kind of has a sweet smell, a little bit of a yogurt smell. So that's what you want. When you start a new starter, it's not guaranteed that you will have a good result. I have seen it before where it have kind of a funny smell. If it smells like something had died or something like that, then just throw it out. It can happen. So we want to be safe. But it can smell sweet, just like this one. And if you don't feed it often enough, it will start smelling vinegary or a little sour. And again, that's perfectly normal. That's how you make sourdough. Personally, I like the sourdough to not be sour. It's why I call it a leavened bread. I like it to be more on the sweeter side. And the way you do that is that you make sure that you feed or refresh your starter often, so you remove any acidity that develops, and that way your bread will have just a tiny bit of sourness, but not much at all. If you like it more sour, you can let your starter starve a little bit, and then you will develop more of the sour smell. If you really leave it too long without feeding it, it will start making some black water on top. Again, that's normal. It's just a byproduct that the yeast are making. And if you wait long enough, it's going to die, and then you can see some mold on top of it. I get that question a lot. People call me and say, hey, I see a few mold on the starter. Can I scrape them off? And my answer is no. Just in that case, get rid of the starter. If you live close to me, I will give you some starter. If not, start it from scratch. But it should smell sweet, vinegary, sour, but that's it. Anything else, just discard the starter because you don't know what you could be growing.
So I have just about finished mixing with the dough. Now is dough. So you want to clean off your hands, and an efficient way to clean off your hands is if you have a scraper like this. It will help you scrape off most of the dough that's sticking to your hands. Another method is if you take flour and rub flour against both hands like soap on top of a trash can, and it will help remove most of the dough. You don't want to put it in your sink until you have very little dough because it might clog your sink.
All right, that's right. So show a little bit how your dough looks to your camera.
So the dough is starting to look like this.
Okay.
So it's like everything is mixed in, which is good. And so then we have to let it rest for 10 minutes, which you want to put flour on whatever you're letting it rest.
Yeah, so you don't want your dough to, so that's the first mix. So we said about 3 minutes, and we're going to do 3 mixes. So in between every mixes, you're going to let your dough rest about 10 minutes. So a good way to make sure your dough doesn't dry out during those 10 minutes, you can put a damp towel over it. You can simply take your mixing bowl and dump the dough on the countertop, and then you cover it with your mixing bowl. That way you didn't use any towel or any plastic, so that's perfect. So while the dough is resting and the bread is baking, I'm going to show you now how to shape the dough. So shaping the dough, we have some dough. So we have some dough here that we took out of the fridge and that we have been letting warm up and proof a little bit. Really the idea is just to let it develop flavor and shape.
And you can see there's a bubble right here.
Yeah, there is a very nice bubble right here, and so maybe it will go away, maybe it will stay. So to proof your bread and give it the shape you want, when it's baguette we use a couche, or it's called a baker's couche, or you can use a kitchen towel. When it comes to the sourdough, to have it round, you can use a proofing basket. So we sell those on our website, but those are nice coil proofing basket. They give a very nice design to the oven. Those are regular cloth proofing basket. It's a wicker basket with a cloth inside. But again, since we're all confined at home, we're trying to do with what we have. So back in the days when I didn't have any of that equipment, I just took a simple strainer, and then I put a kitchen towel in it, a little bit of flour, and that's it. That becomes your proofing basket. So it works pretty much just as well as a regular basket. It's definitely not as fancy, and if you do a lot of bread, you may run out of strainers, but that's definitely a good technique. So today I will just use the cloth baskets with the wicker. So let's put that away. Alright, so I have my wicker basket and those bowls. So when you make your dough here, you're going to end up with about 1,600 grams or about 3 pounds of dough, sorry. So a recipe like that, you can do 2 nice loaves of 1.5 pounds each, about 750 grams to 800 grams. This one's a little bigger. I think we were close to the 2 kilos or something like that. So I'm going to cut it in 4. So the best way to cut it, you take a metal scraper. If not, you can use a good knife. And the idea, you don't want to be cutting like a knife, you just want to be pushing down all the way to the wood that is underneath or the countertop. And that's it. So I already cut in 2, now I cut it in 4. And so pretty much I'm going to do just like I did for the small bowl, the small baguette bowl that I showed you a couple of days ago. I'm going to start folding the sides toward the center, and of course it's much bigger, so it's harder to hold. I'm going to turn my scale back on, and I'm going to weigh it. I want to make sure I have at least 750 grams. Okay, so this one is about 800, so that's perfect. So you don't want to overly turn it. This one has a nice shape. I'm not going to be overly shaping it. I put a lot of flour down on the basket, that's important, and a lot of flour down on the bread. And then I'm going to flip it upside down, okay? So if you see, the seam of all the joint that I made is facing up, and that's it. You're going to let it proof. It can take anywhere. So if you want to proof it overnight, put it in the fridge. If you want to proof it during the day, it will take anywhere from 2 to 5 hours. You want to get to a point where if you put your finger on it, it barely bounces back, kind of like this one. Zach, you want to do one?
Yes, I would like to do one.
All right, so you go ahead and I'm going to do the other one.
And then fold it again.
Fold. Fold. And you see there's a lot of big bubbles. That's perfect. They may go away or try to keep them. It's up to you. Not a big deal.
So this is exactly 755 grams. So I will now put it in a basket. It has a couple of bubbles and it has a pretty good shape. So now we will let it proof.
Okay, so remember you have to put flour on the bread.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and then you put it upside down. Okay, I have one more basket. Alright.
There you go.
You want to do the last one?
Sure. So fold it, fold it, fold it, and then we will see.
Oh, no, wait, here.
And this one is about 600 it's about 680 pounds. So
Not quite.
70.
Okay, oh, I think your
Yeah.
watch is telling us it's time. So
It's-
670, so it's not pounds, it's grams. But
Oh
that's
yeah,
okay.
grams.
Close enough.
And then we will put flour on it and in the basket, and we'll flip it over.
Perfect.
Let it proof.
All right.
And the thing says that the bread is ready.
So it has been cooking for 15 minutes. So just to make sure we can see well, we're going to move everything. Zach, can you help me before we open it?
Oh yeah.
I make some room. Move the scale. Perfect. And then I think your dough has
My,
been resting. So go ahead, put it back in your bowl. Perfect. And we're going to knead it in just a minute.
yeah. Okay.
So,
So we have
And
to
remove
take
the door.
the insulated door.
Okay, your time is heavy. Perfect. All right. And then you want to bring the bread out.
Yes.
Here,
So-
use this peel. And put it right here. Alright, that looks pretty good.
This is an excellent looking pea bread.
So how do we know if it's cooked?
So you know if it starts singing, which cause when the bread is cooked, it makes little crackling sounds.
Can you hear it singing?
Yeah, I can hear it singing. So
Alright, and
which
so-
means that it's cooked.
Alright, and what's the other technique? Can you flip it upside down?
Yeah, you can flip it and then see if it's hollow.
Alright,
Very hot.
alright, that sounds
If you
nice
can
and hollow.
hear that, it's very hollowy soundy. Makes
Perfect.
sense.
So a bread like that, so the bread didn't rise as much as I was hoping, even though it's looking pretty good. We made a small one on purpose so we can cook it in about 15 minutes. If you do a large loaf like that and your oven is about 450 degrees, you're going to be cooking it for about half hour to possibly 45 minutes. So don't be shy, feel free to leave it longer. It's normal to have a point where it's really coloring. It has a nice brown to almost dark brown color. It's when you develop a lot of the flavor on the crust. And that's also going to make sure you have a thicker crust on the bread and make sure that your crumb is nice and open inside as well. So this one we have the oven a little hotter, 500, just to make sure we speed up the process and the video is not half hour or 45 minutes, it becomes a little too long. But at this point, this looks good. I may put it back maybe just a couple of minutes to finish cooking it, but that's pretty much it. And so anytime you do a sourdough bread, you want to make sure that once it's baked, you want to give it at least an hour to cool off. There is a lot of CO2 that comes out when you are baking it, and if you eat the bread hot, you can actually kind of get a tummy ache. Nothing really bad, but it's unpleasant. So give your bread about an hour to rest, and that's very specific to sourdough bread. So I think this dough is about right.
The dough is about ready to start kneading again. So you will take your dough and then you'll do like push it back and forth and then turn it. So you take it up and then you push it down and then you turn it. So it makes kind of like a pattern. Push, turn, push. And then you'll start to get a very, very good dough that is starting to be good. And then if it starts to stick to your countertop or table, you just add more flour and then you continue it.
Okay, and so as Zach is saying, you're going to be kind of stretching and folding the dough. So we're not really looking to knead the dough. Often it's more tiring than anything else. So no need to be really kneading into it, just like the mixer does. You can actually kind of just stretch it and fold it, stretch it and fold it. You do that for about 3 minutes. And your dough is going to go from something that is very soft to almost like a rubber ball. Anytime you start working on it, it just gets back into the shape. So at that point, you know that it's time to give it time to rest. So again, you're going to do 3 mixes. The first one, just to mix all the ingredients together, 10 minutes rest. Second mix, which is what Zach is doing, where you kind of stretch and fold. And then after that, you're going to give it another 10 minutes to rest. Then you do your third mix, which is another 3 minutes of stretch and fold. Then you can put it in the fridge, let it rest overnight. Next morning, take it out, let it warm up, and you shape it into the shape that we get today, into the bread basket. Let it proof, and then bake it. So if you have any questions, again, feel free to send us an email or send us a message on Facebook. Again, thank you to everyone who has been following us. We really much appreciate it. Zach and I have been having a lot of fun doing that. We're going to take a break for the weekend, and then we'll think about what we want to be baking or cooking on Monday, and we'll be back on Monday.
And another thing to add, if you ever feel like your dough is very liquidy or too dry, you have to wait until the third mix to see the final results, because sometimes it seems very dry and wet, but it's actually at the third mix, it actually feels very perfect. That's not a word. And
So,
then you will have you don't want to, and then if you add it in like the second or first mix, then it will be more dry or more wet at the end.
That's right. So what Zach is saying is that don't adjust your recipe, right, until your third mix. So you may think that you made a mistake, but you probably didn't. So even if at the first mix you feel like it's too dry or too wet, don't feel like, oh, I need to adjust it, I made a mistake. Wait that you have made your third mix, and most likely it will look just the way you wanted it to look by the third mix. So if it still doesn't look good by the third mix, then feel free to add the water or the flour. But most of the time it's best to work with the way the dough is than trying to adjust it. So
the dough is starting to
I think it's
bounce
good
back.
now. All right, so you want to put it back to rest?
Yes, so then you put it back under and put flour.
A little bit of flour so it doesn't stick to the countertop.
Yes.
Perfect.
And then we'll let it rest for another 10 minutes.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Again, if you have ideas for recipes, feel free to send it to us, and we'll see you Monday.
Bye.